a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Paris Saint-Germain F.C. Paris Saint-Germain Football Club, commonly known as Paris Saint-Germain, Paris SG, or simply PSG, is a French professional football club based in the city of Paris. Founded in 1970, the club has traditionally worn red and blue kits. The team has played its home matches in the 47,929 capacity Parc des Princes in the 16th arrondissement of Paris since 1974. The club plays in the highest tier of French football, Ligue 1. Paris Saint-Germain established itself as a major force in France, and one of the major forces of European football in recent years. PSG have won a total of 38 trophies, making it the most successful French club in history by this measure. PSG is also the only club to have never been relegated from Ligue 1, the club with most consecutive seasons in the top flight. One of only two French clubs to have won a major European title, and the most popular football club in France and one of the most widely supported teams in the world. Domestically, the Parisians have won 7 Ligue 1 titles, a record 12 Coupe de France, a record 8 Coupe de la Ligue, and a joint record 8 Trophée des Champions titles. The club has also won 1 Ligue 2 title. In European football, they have won 1 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup and 1 UEFA Intertoto Cup. PSG have a long-standing rivalry with Olympique de Marseille. The duo contest French football's most notorious match, known as Le Classique. Oryx Qatar Sports Investments have been the club's owner since 2011. The takeover made PSG the richest club in France and one of the wealthiest in the world. Currently, they have the 7th highest revenue in the footballing world with an annual revenue of €486.2 million, and are the world's 11th most valuable football club, worth €825 million. The capital club currently has active departments for youth football and women's football. History. Paris Saint-Germain was formed on 12 August 1970 after the fusion of Paris FC created a year earlier to fill the void of having no top-flight club in the capital and Stade Saint-Germain. Founded in 1904 in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, the birth town of Louis XIV. However, PSG really took flight in 1973, when fashion designer Daniel Hector took over the club. Coached by French football legend Just Fontaine, PSG won promotion to Ligue 1 a year later and slowly began attracting the first stars of PSG such as Mustapha Daleb and Carlos Bianchi. In 1978, Daniel Hector handed control of the club to Francis Pirelli, under whose guidance PSG won their first silverware, the Coupe de France in 1982 and 1983 and the Ligue in 1986, during a decade marked by players such as Safet Suzik, Luis Fernandez, and Dominique Rocheteau. Canal took over the club in 1991 and propelled PSG to the forefront of the European game. Between 1993 and 1997, the club from the French capital made 5 European semi-finals in a row. Led by football icons David Ginola, Georges Weah, and Valdo, amongst others, PSG won a second league title in 1994, 2 years before lifting the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. At the start of the 21st century, PSG produced many talents, including Ronaldinho and Pauletta, but struggled to rescale the heights they obtained during the earlier years. This changed in 2011, however, with the arrival of new owners Oryx Qatar Sports Investments, and new club president Nasser Al Khelaifi. PSG established an extremely ambitious project to take the club to the summits of the European game. Spearheaded by the arrival of superstar striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic, PSG attained 4 league titles, 3 Coupe de France, 4 Coupe de la Ligue and 5 Trophée des Champions titles. The club further built upon this success by signing world record transfer Neymar and 18-year-old French prodigy Kylian Mbappé in 2017. Together with Uruguayan striker Edinson Cavani, they formed a fearsome attacking trio and claimed PSG's 3rd domestic quadruple in 4 seasons. Colors. Since its foundation, PSG have always represented both Paris and Saint-Germain-en-Laye. As a result, red, blue and white are the traditional colors of Paris Saint-Germain. The red and blue represent the city of Paris. while the white stands for the nearby commune of Saint-Germain-en-Laye. In the club's crest, the French capital is represented by the Eiffel Tower in red and the blue background. For its part, the white cradle with the white fleur-de-lis on top is a hint to the coat of arms of Saint-Germain-en-Laye and to French royalty. In France, white is the color of royalty and the fleur-de-lis is a royal symbol. The cradle and the fleur-de-lis also recall that French King Louis XIV was born in Saint-Germain-en-Laye in 1638. Likewise, PSG's home shirt has always featured the three colors of the club. The three main home jerseys worn by Paris SG throughout its history have been predominantly red, blue or white. The club's first shirt was red, while the other two were predominantly blue and white. However, all three have included the remaining two colors, as well as with further variations of the home jersey. Home shirt. The newly formed Paris Saint-Germain wore a red shirt during its first 3 seasons of existence. The jersey also featured a blue and white collar to bring together the three colors of the club, the red and blue of Paris, and the white of Saint-Germain-en-Laye. During the 2010-11 season, PSG wore a red shirt in their home games to commemorate its 40th anniversary. In 1973, fashion designer Daniel Hector became club president and designed PSG's iconic jersey. Hector would later admit that his creation was influenced by Ajax's outfit. The so-called Hector shirt, first worn until 1980-81, is blue with a red central and vertical band framed by white edgings. It returned as PSG's home identity in 1994-95, and has remained so ever since, despite Nike's constant innovations. PSG stars from the 1990s and 2000s eras such as Rai, Ronaldinho and Pauletta are associated with the blue-white-red-white-blue shirt. It was with the Hector shirt that PSG reached 5 European semi-finals in a row, claimed the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup in 1995-96, and achieved the 8 consecutive wins against Olympique de Marseille. Promoted by PSG president Francis Borelli, the capital club changed its home identity in 1981-82. The new shirt, worn until 1992-93, was white with blue and red vertical stripes on the left. PSG legends from the 1980s like Safet Suzik, Luis Fernandez and Dominique Batheny are associated with the white jersey. It was with this outfit that fans saw the first big Paris Saint-Germain team that won 2 Coupe de France titles, experienced its first European campaign in 1983, and claimed its maiden league crown in 1986. Crest. The first crest of the club, also known as the Paris FC logo, was used from 1970 until 1973. It featured a ball and a vessel, 2 powerful symbols of Paris, as well as the club's name, Paris Saint-Germain Football Club, or its initials, PSG FC. In 1972, PSG split from Paris FC and, a year later, the club changed its crest. PSG presented their historic crest in 1973, known as the Eiffel Tower logo. The new logo finally represented both Paris and Saint-Germain-en-Laye. It mainly consisted of a blue background with the Eiffel Tower in red. But between the tower's legs sat 2 Saint-Germain-en-Laye symbols in white, Louis XIV's cradle and a fleur-de-lis. According to former PSG manager Robert Vicot, club president Daniel Hector introduced the Eiffel Tower in the crest. However, it was a draftsman called Mr. Vallet who had the idea of placing the birthplace of Louis XIV between the legs of the tower. In 1980, the Parc des Princes was added to the crest, right under Louis XIV's cradle. This logo lasted until 1991, with the exception of the 1986-87 and 1987-88 seasons, when the club used a special logo in support of the Paris candidature for the 1992 Summer Olympics. In 1991, the Parc des Princes was removed from the crest. In 1993, former Paris SG shareholder Canal was the first to replace the iconic crest. The new model had the acronym PSG, and underneath it, Paris Saint-Germain. Under pressure from supporters, the traditional crest returned in 1995. This time, however, the crest was surrounded by the club's name, Paris Saint-Germain, and its year of foundation, 1970. In 2002, it went through a slight facelift. In 2013, the Eiffel Tower crest received a major makeover. PSG shareholder Oryx Qatar Sports Investments wanted to take full advantage of the city's global appeal, and the new crest features the name, Paris, written in large bold letters. Additionally, Louis XIV's cradle was left out, as the fleur-de-lis now sits solely under the Eiffel Tower. Finally, Saint-Germain took the place of the club's founding year, 1970, at the bottom. Mottos, mascot and anthems. Paris est magique and ICI, c'est Paris, have historically been the club's most popular mottos. More recently, PSG introduced its official anthem and mascot, in commemoration of its 40th anniversary in 2010. The capital club revived its Tournoi de Paris pre-season competition. Ahead of the tournament, PSG unveiled Allez Paris Saint-Germain, to the tune of Go West, by Village People, and Germain the Lynx as the club's anthem and mascot, respectively. Ville Lumière, to the tune of Flower of Scotland, is considered a club anthem as well. Parc des Princes. The Parc des Princes is an all-seater football stadium in Paris, France. The venue is located in the southwest of the French capital, inside the 16th arrondissement of Paris, in the immediate vicinity of the Stade Jean-Bouin and within walking distance from the Stade Roland-Garros. The stadium, with a seating capacity of 47,929 spectators, has been the home pitch of Paris Saint-Germain since 1974. Before the opening of the Stade de France in 1998, it was also the home arena of the French national football and rugby union teams. The Parc des Princes pitch is surrounded by 4 covered all-seater stands, officially known as the Presidential Francis Borrelli, Hôtel, Paris, and Boulogne stands, conceived by architect Roger Taylor-But. The current version of the Parc des Princes officially opened on the 4th of June 1972, at a cost of 150 million francs. The stadium is the third to have been built on the site, the first opening its doors in 1897, and the second following in 1932. PSG registered its record home attendance in 1983, when 49,575 spectators witnessed the club's 2-0 win over Waterski and the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup quarter-finals. However, the French national rugby team holds the stadium's absolute attendance record. They defeated Wales 31-12 in the 1989 Five Nations Championship in front of 50,370 spectators. Camp des Loges. The Camp des Loges, also known as the Audi Training Centre for sponsorship reasons, is a sports complex located in Saint-Germain-en-Laye. The current version of the Camp des Loges officially opened on the 4th of November 2008. It is the second to have been built on the site, the first opening its doors in 1904. The sports complex has been the training centre of Paris Saint-Germain since the club's foundation in 1970, as well as playing host to the Paris Saint-Germain Academy since its opening on the 4th of November 1975. In July 2016, PSG chose Boissy as the site of its future performance centre, baptized Campus Paris Saint-Germain, which is scheduled to open at the start of the 2019-20 season. Stade Municipal Georges Lefèvre. The Stade Municipal Georges Lefèvre is a sports complex located on Président Kennedy Avenue in the forest of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, just across the street from Paris Saint-Germain's training centre, the Camp des Loges. The complex's main football stadium, with a seating capacity of 2,164 spectators, was the home pitch of PSG until 1974, when the club moved into the Parc des Princes. Currently, the stadium, as well as the other artificial turf and grass football pitches of the complex, hosts training sessions and home matches for the Paris Saint-Germain Academy. Support. Paris Saint-Germain is the most popular football club in France ahead of arch-rivals Olympique de Marseille. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy is one of the club's most prominent supporters. Since the emergence of the Boulogne Boys in the 1980s, PSG fan groups or ultras have been linked to football hooliganism. PSG's Boulogne Boys, considered one of the oldest hooligan groups in France, took their British neighbours as dubious role models and violence escalated in the early 1990s. PSG owners Canal, France's premium pay channel, even tried to break up the boys without success. That's why they encouraged some non-violent fans of Boulogne to take place in the Virage Hotel at the other end of Boulogne boys. In order to be differentiated with boys, Sucres Hotel followed Italian supporters' example with the use of flares and tifo choreography. More generally, this distinction is also a representation of the state of Paris in the 1990s, with Boulogne boys embodying skinhead subculture and French far-right movements, and Sucres Hotel representing Parisian diversity with immigrants or sons of immigrants. However, as the years go by, there was less xenophobia in Boulogne, even if nationalism was still present. The feared French riot police were expelled by the boys and other minor fan groups in the Boulogne stand during a game against Caen in 1993. Incidents occurred wherever PSG travelled, and only multiplied with the emergence of the Sucres Hotel in the Hotel stand as a rival to Boulogne's hegemony. Things came to a head in February 2010 shortly after Marseille beat PSG 3-0 at Parc des Princes. PSG supporter Jan Lawrence was involved in a violent exchange outside the Parc des Princes between the Boulogne boys and their counterparts in the Hotel stand at the other end of the stadium. The 37-year-old was left in a critical condition and hospitalized, but was pronounced clinically dead the following month because of the injuries he sustained that night. Lawrence's death forced then PSG president Robin Leproux to take action. All season tickets at Parc des Princes were revoked and all ultra groups were exiled in what was known as Plan Leproux. The incident led to the dissolution of the Sucres Hotel. The death of Jan Lawrence was not even the first in recent memory. Julien Quemena, a Boulogne boys member, was shot dead by an off-duty policeman during violence following PSG's UEFA Cup tie with Hapoel Tel Aviv in November 2006. During the 2008 Coupe de la Ligue final, the boys also unfurled a banner which referred to Lens fans as incestuous, jobless pedophiles. The episode led to the dissolution of the Boulogne boys, before Plan Leproux came into effect. Parc des Princes was one of the most intimidating stadiums to visit in Europe. The plan made PSG pay the price in terms of atmosphere, with one of Ligue 1's most feared venues now subdued. For their part, many of the remaining supporter groups formed the Collectif Ultras Paris with the aim of returning to the Parc des Princes. In early October 2016, after a 6-year absence, the club and the Cup first agreed a Parc des Princes return for PSG's 2-0 home win over Bordeaux. The Ultras have since been regrouped in the Hotel end of the stadium. In April 2017, PSG's Ultras reportedly damaged areas of Lions Park Hall during the 2017 Coupe de la Ligue final against Monaco. As a result, the French Football League hit PSG with a €100,000 fine. In May 2017, PSG supporter groups Listener Paris and Microbes Paris left the Cup. Additionally, the Cup dismissed the Cassad group from its ranks. The groups left in the Cup are the Quesos team, Liberté pour les Buns, Le Combat Continue, Le Parias, and Nautisha. In August 2017, PSG and the Cup reached an agreement to allow the club's ultras to hold season tickets together in the Hotel End for the first time since 2010. Rivalries. Paris Saint-Germain shares an intense rivalry with Olympique de Marseille. Matches between the two teams are referred to as Le Classique. The clash is considered France's biggest rivalry, and one of the greatest in club football. At the very least, it is France's most violent. Important security measures are taken to prevent confrontations between the fans, but violent episodes still often occur when the duo meet. PSG and L'O.M remain, along with Saint-Étienne, the only French clubs with a big history pre-millennium. The duo are the only two French clubs to have won major European trophies and were the dominant forces in the land prior to the emergence of Olympique Lyonnais at the start of the millennium. They are also the two most popular clubs in France, and the most followed French clubs outside the country. Both teams are at or near the top of the attendance lists every year as well. Like all the game's major rivalries, PSG vs OM extends beyond the pitch. The fixture has a historical, cultural and social importance that makes it more than just a football match. It involves the two largest cities in France, Paris against Marseille, Capital against province and north against south. Brought to you by WikiVidi documentaries. Would you like to